Hi everyone, my name is Federico Quintero and welcome to my docu-series where I interview entrepreneurs around me and learn about what they do, how they got to where they are today, and life lessons that they learned along the way. And I hope you learned as much as I did while interviewing these entrepreneurs, and I hope you enjoy. Hi Eddie, how are you?
Good to see you.
So welcome to my interview where I'm going to ask you some questions about what you do for your work to help some of people of my age find out the life of an entrepreneur. So first of all, can you tell me a little bit about what you do?
Okay, so my name's Edward Park, and I basically do plastic and reconstructive surgery. I have a solo practice in Upland, pretty close by, and primarily my focus is on cosmetic surgery and a little bit of breast and skin cancer reconstruction.
And why did you get into this field of work?
That's a good question. I think, at your age and even younger, we all get shaped. For me, my father and mother were big influences. They kind of wanted me to go into medicine. And fortunately, I loved medicine and kind of went up the education channel to become a doctor. Yeah.
Did you have to study to get into this field of work? And if so, about how many years?
A lot. It is a long road to become a doctor, as you probably know. So basically, we go through 4 years of high school, obviously, 4 years of college. Then we test and go through get into medical school, which is another 4 years. But the final stage is residency, and that depends on what specialty you go through. So a medicine residency can be about 3 years. Surgical residencies are about 5 to 7 years. So when I was finished, I did my integrated plastic surgery residency at Stanford, and that was 6 years. So when I graduated, I was 33 years old. So I was in school for about 33 years.
So it took a lot of hard work to get to.
Yeah, I would say a lot of hard work and a lot of just commitment. I'm sure you're going to ask some values, and I think that's super important to go into a profession of like a physician. You just have to grind and be committed. It's a long road, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you consider this to be your dream job or a dream career?
Absolutely. If I wasn't an F1 driver or a professional golf player, absolutely. Realistically, I've always wanted to be a physician and a surgeon, and I love doing surgery because I always tell my kids, it's like building Legos. It's just fun. It's a lot of action. Yeah.
So about how old were you when you first started working?
So like first job?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good question. I'll have to think back. And I did everything from like working at the Pavilions grocery store as a grocery bagger. I've done Cutco sales, knives, going house to house. I've worked at the Gap. So I kind of did all those beginning things.
And about how old were you when you were doing
I would say I was in like junior, well, more like high school when I was doing those types of jobs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to get through school, did you have any influences or role models?
Probably really my parents. I mean, just like you, I know your parents, and I've got 4 kids, and I hope to influence them. And really my role models and who really guided me along my path were my father and mother. My father was very strict and really set the goals and the bars, like the straight A's and such. And then my mother was kind of that passionate, loving one. And she was a violin teacher, still plays violin. And so she kind of instilled the artistic part of, building my artistry, which really contributed to surgery.
So you kind of had a little bit of both love and... Yeah.
So that was kind of nice. Yeah.
So what does a typical work day look like for you?
And so as a surgeon, I love being in the OR. And so I'm in the operating room 3 times a week. So that's Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And then in clinic, I'll see patients, and that's when I'm seeing them on Tuesdays and Fridays. I do. What the beauty of plastic surgery is, there's not a lot of emergencies. I don't need to take call like a lot of other doctors do. So I do get a lot of my weekends free to spend time with my family, wife and kids. And then when I'm in the OR, I love to operate. I usually start cut time at about 7:30, and then I'll operate cases and cases till about like 5, 6, or 7. So sometimes it'll be a 10-hour surgery day or a 12-hour surgery day.
12 hours surgery.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, time goes by fast, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
And so would you say you're successful?
Wow, that's a good question, Federico. I like to think in myself that I'm successful, right? But it depends on how you measure success. I think, unfortunately, a lot of us kind of get focused on financials and such. And in that sense, sure, there's some success there. But I think we all kind of measure success in what we think of ourselves and whether we truly love it. So if I were to ask, another person growing up what your level of success is, I would say really find something you love. And if you truly love what you're doing, I think that's being in success. So by that measure, I would say I'm successful.
And earlier I heard you mention values like commitment to become successful. Would you mind telling me a little bit more about these values that you have?
Yeah, that's a good question, because in order to achieve, accomplish, and get to your dream of what you want to be, I think my advice to young people is to simply go after core values, and you already know them, which is great. Be motivated, be committed, be reliable. Sometimes in this day and age, the social environment is, even employees, like sometimes they don't show up and things like that. So a lot of the values have changed over time. But I think if some of the core values we have in our business is simple things like commitment and communication. So if you start with the basic values like that, I think you'll really be ahead of the game. Yeah.
And I heard you mention motivation in your values. Can you tell me a little bit about what motivates you during work?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think motivation can be both intrinsic and extrinsic. So what I mean by that, because I have 20 employees and I try to motivate them, right? And so that to me is the extrinsic. So I get motivated by other people. So in other words, I try to surround myself with successful people, and people that are better than me, and I'll get, they're motivating me, right? And those are like my mentors and such. But I also think that you, as an individual, have to have a fire within. You know what I'm saying? So I think some of us are born with motivation. Like you doing this docuseries, I find, Federico, that's motivating. As a 13-year-old, I think that's phenomenal. And I think if you find that passion within, that's you just have to follow that, and that's your inner motivation. And then you combine that with your extrinsic, external motivation people, then you're really going to get driven towards success. Yeah.
So I would assume that during a typical workday, or all these years you've been working in your current field, there have been some obstacles. Can you tell me a little bit about those obstacles that you've seen?
Yeah, I think we all face that on a daily basis. I mean, here's an example. Just working out, right? Like no one wants to work out. And at the end, in the morning, you just have to get up and do it. A lot of the challenges are we have to do things that we don't want to do. So for example, for me, academics, many sleepless nights, doing the all-nighters studying. We all hate that. A lot of times we just want to give up, go to bed. But if you continue to set your eyes on that goalpost of, hey, I have this, I want to be a surgeon, I want to be a successful one, I have to get an A in anatomy, let's go, let's study, and so the challenges that you face, you're going to face trials and tribulations, right? But when you fall, you have to get up. When you overcome those challenges, you're going to be that much better, So it's all a matter of perspective. That's how I look at it. One of the things I see is you have to be optimistic, right? You may be like, oh, this sucks, I don't want to do this. But once you go through that trial, and you've just become stronger, right? So those challenges, I feel, really just, they're there to make you better and stronger. So I welcome those. Yeah.
And I assume you would have had a favorite part of working in your current field?
Favorite part? So I love operating. I love what I do physically. It's like an adrenaline rush. I get to be creative in the operating room. But also, as you grow up, you're finding your passions. I'm finding mine. The goalpost is always moving, right? And so for me, now I'm a little more, the other passion I have is in people, influencing them, being positive, and setting an example. So I was so excited because this is exciting. I get to hopefully inspire, young children or whatnot. But the other is I see patients every day. And my job it's not really the surgery. I mean, the surgeries are great, but I'm connecting with every single patient as a person. And I try to make them happy because at the end of the day, that's what we want. So the influence I have as a surgeon ultimately is risen to, hey, can I make this person happier? Whether it's my family or children or patients. So that's kind of what is kind of the next level that I'm looking for, yeah.
So on days that you have stress or feelings of doubt, how do you calm yourself down? Like meditation or listening to music?
Yeah. And I was mentioning, gosh, I don't have time to think about stress, but I think you hit on a very important point that we have to find balance between work and pleasure in our life. And so, I often get a lot of driven and successful people get addicted to work and such. And so I think balance is very important. So I make it a point on weekends not to think about work. So some of the things I do, you just have to find hobbies that you love. For me, there's two things I love. After family, it's cars. I love cars. I collect them, I drive them, I've raced them, and golf. Golf is very serene for me, so I just like playing golf even with my kids, and that gives me some, stress relief.
And would you say that this is also how you find a balance between your work and your family?
In terms of work and life, yeah. Yeah, I think that, yeah. And I think what you have to do also is a lot of us feel like we almost bring the busyness upon ourselves, right? And we're like too busy doing something. And ultimately, it's not that anyone has no time for it, like whether it's family or hobbies and things of that nature. You just have to create that time. And I think that's really important to find that balance.
I would assume that you have grown a lot through these years of study and work. Do you feel like you have grown as a person?
Absolutely. I mean, we're all in this journey of life together. And in the beginning, you're just trying to find your career and you're trying to grow it, right? And then when you get to my old age, it's like, I feel like I'm kind of in my mid-career path. But what I'm trying to do is now I feel like you go through the pattern of trying to find success. You try to find what makes you happy. And then ultimately, now the next chapter is, okay, what's my purpose? There's got to be more purpose. I'm more than just a surgeon, right? What else can I do? So that type of growth is found within, right? And so one of the things in the future I'm trying to do is, okay, if I have this, God-gifted talent of operating, maybe I can do, and I do participate in some charity surgery work. So people that are in need and can't afford breast cancer reconstruction. So I'm involved in an organization called Mission Plasticos, and it's actually a charity organization where we donate our time and our services to those that can't afford plastic surgery. Yeah.
And in the next chapters of your life, how do you envision the future of your business?
It's funny that you mentioned that because I've grown to the level of where I found that kind of balance. I've almost gotten too busy. So it's like I can't work anymore, but I still want to grow the practice, And so I'm at the point where I'm actually hiring and looking for a junior associate to come on board. And that way we'll kind of grow, and expand the practice even further. So that's kind of the next step.
And my final question to you is, what would you say to the 13-year-old you?
A 13-year-old me, that's a long time ago. Two words is a couple of things I would say is, of course, stay motivated, right? And there's a principle of just having a goal and a dream, right? So I would tell them, have that dream, have that goal, and pursue it. And the other thing I would say is really be honest with yourself and don't compromise your values. And one of the number one values, I say, keep your integrity. Do the right thing, be honest with yourself, and really look inward as to like what you want to do, with your life, and follow that dream, and you'll get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming out here.
You're welcome, Federico. Good job. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for watching my interview. And if you enjoyed what you watched, make sure to like and subscribe if you want more. Bye and see you next time.